So in last week, just the last week, it appears we're getting ever closer to the Gog-Magog war, which is, in my opinion, briefly preceded by the Zechariah 9 war. What I mean is the Zechariah 9 war will cause the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war to explode. So they'll be back to back. That's my opinion. I'll go over that in just a minute. I'll go ahead and get started with screen share and explain why I believe we are ever closer to the Gog-Magog war. Where do I go first? Let's see. We'll go ahead and start with this article in Zero Hedge. Turkey prepares to reinvade Cyprus if needed, Erdogan says, following EU sanctions. Now, the EU sanctions is a result of Turkey, Anatolia, in biblical terms, Anatolia, Turkey encroaching on Cyprus waters in order to drill for gas. And I'll begin reading the article. Turkey's military is prepared to reinvade Cyprus if needed for the lives and security of Turkish Cypriots. Now, folks, those of you who followed the events of World War II and Hitler's invasion of Czechoslovakia, it was the same, how do I say this? It was the same pretext. It was the same pretext for invasion. For the security and the lives of Turkish Cypriots. So Hitler, for the sake of Germans living in Czechoslovakia, you see. Same thing. Turkish President Recep Erdogan said on Saturday. That was yesterday. So this statement was made yesterday. The entire world is watching our determination. No one should doubt that the heroic Turkish army, which sees northern Cyprus as its homeland, will not hesitate to take the same step it took 45 years ago, if needed, for the lives and security of the Turkish Cypriots. State-run Anadolu, or Anatolia, news agency quoted Erdogan as saying, you can get it here if you want. Click it, well, yes. So this is, you can look it up yourself. There it is. So just because Zero Hedge is a slightly dubious website, it does not mean that every one of its articles are wrong. So I will proceed. Erdogan issued a statement as the nation marks the 45th anniversary of Turkey's deeply controversial invasion of northern Cyprus in 1974, long condemned by the bulk of UN member countries. Of course, what did they do about it? Nothing. Just like if he chooses to do so again, what will they do? Nothing. And I will show you in just a minute proof. But the provocative remarks come amidst what EU member Cyprus has dubbed a second invasion, involving illegal Turkish oil and gas drillings accompanied by Turkish warships, F-16s, and drones to ensure protection of its drilling vessels. The EU agreed on Monday to bring financial and political sanctions against Turkey after repeated warnings in the past weeks over Ankara's deploying multiple offshore drilling vessels into international recognized Cypriot waters. The European Union announced on Monday from Brussels, today we will adopt a number of measures against Turkey: less money, fewer loans through European Investment Bank, freeze of aviation agreement talks, naturally other sanctions are possible. Most serious measure will involve a cut of 145.8 million euros in European funds allocated to Turkey for 2020, according to a prior AFP report. Now, folks, that money is blackmail money, see, which Europe offered Turkey to keep Syrian refugees in Turkey and not allow them to spread through Europe. And of course, it was Turkey, after all, that sponsored, as we found out, last year, found out that Turkey was the one who sponsored ISIS all along. It was Turkey. Okay. Erdogan appeared to directly address the crisis in his Saturday statement. Those who think the wealth of the island and the region only belongs to them will face the determination of Turkey and Turkish Cypriots, indicating an unwillingness to back down on Turkey's oil and gas exploration claims inside Greek Cyprus exclusive economic zone. Those who dream of changing the fact that Turkish Cypriots are an integral part of the Turkish nation will soon realize that it is in vain, Erdogan added. Turkey has laid claim to a waters extending a whopping 200 miles from its coast, brazenly asserting ownership over a swath of Mediterranean that even cuts into Greece's exclusive economic zone. So far, Ankara has responded to EU sanctions by reaffirming its rights to waters in all parts of the Cyprus coast. Should the Turkish military attempt to enforce its drilling claims and run up against Cypriot and Greek vessels, it could spark a deadly encounter which would force the EU and NATO to finally weigh in more forcefully. And just on the heels of the Russian S-400 standoff, yes, folks, you know that this is the reason Erdogan is beating his chest, because of the Russian S-400 systems now being deployed in his country. And now Russia is even offering what is it, 4.5 generation aircrafts, since the United States has now cut off the F-35 from Turkey. So this thing is quickly heading out of control. The next major Turkish showdown with the West looks to be fast heating up in the Eastern Mediterranean. Now, there's something I need to show you, and that is on this article right here. Now, johnhelmer.net. Now, he's not what I would consider a reliable source, but in this particular case, there is more truth than not, so I'll go ahead and start reading on it. This week, a group of U.S. senators has proposed to leave Turkey in control of the northern part of Cyprus and force the Greek Cypriots to choose between the U.S. and Russia for economic and political future of the south of the island. I think you can read between the lines. You see, the Greeks and the Greek Cypriots have also been jumping back and forth between U.S. hegemony and Russian. Senate Foreign Relations Committee agreed by a large bipartisan majority on June the 25th to put into law a new Eastern Mediterranean strategy. If the bill is enacted, Cyprus would be required to decide that in exchange for American protection, protection from who? From Turkish military threats. Which means the Americans see trouble coming from Turkey in this very subject matter we're talking about right now, including Russian-made S-400 missiles to be based in southwestern Turkey. The Cyprus government must not allow Russian naval vessels to dock at Cypriot ports and should block all Russian money and investments on the island. Well, that's going to put the Greek Cypriots into a tough spot, is it not? And it might not be able to meet those demands. This is why I say I don't believe the EU nor the US is going to protect Greek Cyprus if Turkey should invade. Sound familiar? Does anybody remember how World War II started? The aggressor started gobbling up lands and the West did nothing. That is until, well, you know the story. At the same time, Greece has been told the U.S. military intends to expand its occupation of Crete around the Suda Bay area, Suda Bay base, at Larissa Air Force Base, midway between Athens and Thessalonica, and at other Greek locations. The proposed new law is the most comprehensive plan for the American military occupation of Cyprus and Greece since the Greek Civil War in the 1950s. Now, I don't like the wording of this, because what it does is it impugns the United States, and I'm not necessarily against impugning of the United States per se. But what this kind of language does is it clouds the reason why the United States is wanting to do this to begin with. The United States is trying to stop the expansion of Turkey and Russia. That's the reason. The U.S. plan also establishes State Department censorship of the Greek language media in Cyprus and Greece and threatens U.S. sanctions against the Orthodox Church bishops of the two countries. All right. Then it goes into Senator Bob Menendez, which really is not, my opinion, applicable. United States, Israel, Greece, and Cyprus oppose any action in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Aegean Sea that could challenge stability, violate international law, or undermine good neighborly relations, and in joint declaration on March 21st, 2019, agreed to defend against external malign influences in the Eastern Mediterranean and the broader Middle East. U.S. policy in the region should be aimed, the bill declares, at backing the development of the Cyprus offshore gas deposits as well as future regional pipelines and liquefaction plants in order to compete against Russian gas supplies to Southern Europe. Natural gas developments in the Eastern Mediterranean have the potential to provide economic gains and contribute to energy security in the region and Europe, as well as support European efforts to diversify away from natural gas supplied by the Russian Federation. You see, of course, Russia is going to put puppet strings on Turkey to get Turkey to do its biddings. This is the reason why Turkey was offered S-400s, and I believe it was the Su-35 also. Without naming Turkey, which is currently threatening Cyprus gas exploration at sea with drilling vessels of its own, the bill claims that Cypriot seabed explorations must be safeguarded against threats posed by terrorist and extremist groups, including Hezbollah and any other actor in the region. The bill promises to supply U.S. weapons to Cyprus, ending the arms embargo introduced by Henry Kissinger after he backed the Turkish invasion of the island in mid-1974. I'm not sure if that is true or not. This is the reason why we have to be careful with some of these websites, because they will introduce their own slants, much like CNN does. But there is no parallel U.S. promise in the Menendez bill to halt U.S. arms from being deployed by the Turkish military commands in northern Cyprus, nor does the new U.S. policy alter U.S. acceptance of Turkey's occupation of northern Cyprus. There are two explicit preconditions for the supply of U.S. arms to Cyprus. One is aimed at Russian investment in Cyprus, referred to in S-1102 as money laundering, and the other at Russian Navy port calls in Cyprus. This is why I say I don't think that Cyprus is going to be able to meet these demands. I think, I could be wrong, but I think that the U.S. might be giving up Cyprus altogether here. So it's a long article. I don't want to read the whole thing. So now that Turkey has got S-400 missiles, missile defense system, and is being offered Su-35s, maybe I'll let me go look at this real quick. I think that's what it is. Yep. Once again, zero hedge. Russia offers Turkey advanced Su-35 jets day after U.S. F-35 program expulsion. Folks, this is not hard. This is not hard to figure out what's going on. It really is not. All right. So what's really going on here? Well, we can look at, let's look at Revelation 16 first. Strong's Concordance. We have to use the Strong's Concordance to do this. Otherwise, we will not know what this is talking about at all. This is, and the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates. Now, something interesting. The water thereof was dried up, waste away. Let's look at this real carefully. Wasting away. Dry up to waste away. Now, to waste away is a long process. It doesn't happen overnight. Stiffens, wither away. To desiccate by implication, to shrivel, to mature, to dry up, to pine away. That takes a long time. That's not overnight. This has been going on since the 1970s, folks. Look. Now, where is this? So here's an article on Vox.com. Why Iraq's great rivers are dying. Dying? Withering away. Now, I'm going to, okay, we'll look at a little bit of the text here, and then I'm going to go through part of this video, okay? Iraq is in a fragile state. The country is trying to rebuild itself after 30 years of near constant war, but a new crisis has emerged that could undermine its recovery. Iraq is running out of water. Iraq gets the vast majority of its water from two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris. Both run down the length of the country, supplying drinking water, irrigation, hydroelectricity to a booming population. It's hard to imagine Iraq existing without these rivers, but today they are in peril. The Euphrates in Iraq is down to a quarter of its normal flow. A quarter. Yes, it is wasting away. It is drying up. In 2018, the Tigris sunk so low that people in Baghdad could wade across it. It's very important to remember this when reading that particular passage in Revelation 16, where these rivers combined, called the Shat al-Arab, became so poisonous last summer. This is 2018 now, that 100,000 people were hospitalized, sparking riots in the city of Basra. This episode of Vox Atlas explains how Iraq's water crisis emerged because of geography and its violent history, and it's become the most pressing issue the country faces. Okay, so let's take a look at this video, shall we?
Here in southern Iraq, Valera. The river winds through the city of Basra, here in southern Iraq. It was once one of the most important waterways in the Middle East.
Here lies the great port of Basra, the crossroads of the world's trade.
It fed dozens of canals throughout Basra and earned the city the nickname the Venice of the Middle East. It made Basra the symbol of Iraq's growth and prosperity. Today, it's the second largest city with over 4 million people. And with these oil fields and the only deep water port in the country, it's also the economic center. About 80% of Iraq's revenue comes from here. But this is what Basra's canals look like today. In the summer of 2018, they were choked with debris, raw sewage, and rotten garbage that was poisoning the city's residents. About 100,000 people were hospitalized because of water-related illnesses. Basra now represents a crisis that's been looming over Iraq for decades. The country is running out of water.
Okay.
That's because it neither controls the flow of its rivers or has the infrastructure to clean it. And it's standing in the way of Iraq's recovery.
All right, now keep on.
The waters of the two great rivers, Tigris and Euphrates, are indeed the waters of life.
Almost all of Iraq's water comes from two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, which run down most of the country, then converge here to form the Shat al-Arab, before emptying into the Persian Gulf. Along the way, these rivers provide drinking water to these cities and irrigate farms and marshlands here. The rest of the country is mostly desert. A vast network of infrastructure is used to generate power, distribute the water, and clean it. That includes dams, canals, and water treatment facilities. But this system is delicate. Anything that affects the amount of water flowing down these rivers or the infrastructure around it can have massive consequences. Over the last few decades, both have taken a hit. Iraq relies heavily on these rivers, but it doesn't control them. Both rivers begin in Turkey. About 71% of Iraq's water comes from there, while Syria and Iran add another 10% as the rivers move south, which means 81% of Iraq's water is controlled by its neighbors. And they've been keeping more and more of it for themselves. Since the 1970s, Turkey has built at least 20 dams on the Euphrates and the tributaries that feed it, including the Ataturk Dam, the 5th largest in the world, which provides electricity and water to its country.
Okay, I think that's enough information. You see where the trouble is coming from. Turkey. Turkey. Turkey is drying it up. Okay, so let's go back to Revelation 16. Withered away, wasted away since the 1970s, folks. Does that mean the 6th vial started in the 1970s? It could have, or maybe not. Who knows? That the way of, now the word kings, that's leaders, or leader singular. See, it says a king or a leader of the East might be prepared. But the word East, look at it. Anatolia. Now, Anatolia means East. Well, it means East for the Greeks, you see. Because the Greeks used to own, or Anatolia used to be Greece. but that was their eastern provinces, you see. So that's the reason why they called it Anatolia, east. Now, let's look at Anatolia on a map. What do you see? You see Turkey. Anatolia map right here, Asia Minor, Turkey. All right. Now, if we go and continue, that the way of the kings of Anatolia might be prepared. That happens first. Well, that's been going on since the 1970s. And the Anatolia issue continues. Then another event happens, and you see right here it says, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So in this is a whole different scenario right here. This would be Europe and Europe's leaders. They are spirits of devils working wonders, which go forth unto the kings, unto the king of the land, of the earth, and also of the whole world, to gather them together for that great day of Jehovah Almighty. Now he goes and says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. When does he come? At the 6th vial. He comes before the 7th bowl of wrath. He comes as they are gathering themselves around Israel. That is when he comes. Or his coming brings them, these nations, around against Israel. His coming brings them against Israel. This just is one of the particular events right here that happens just before this event. Well, we see this event happening right before our very eyes. Okay? Now it's time to look at, let's see here. I think I can get rid of this, right? Get rid of this and this. Okay, let's take a look at this map. This is concerning Gog, Magog, and all of the players in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Now, this is does not necessarily mean it's completely and totally accurate, but I would say it's about 90% accurate. Libya represents North Africa. Now, Cush, the name Cush does indeed represent Ethiopia, but also there is a name of Hindu Kush out here just on the other side of Persia in this area right here, Afghanistan and Pakistan. Okay? So we cannot rule these people out in the Kush, the naming of Kush. Gomer, Germanic tribes. Gomer's son was Ashkenaz, which is how the Jews believe that the German people, the Germanic tribes, are Ashkenaz, and that all the surrounding Germanic tribes would be the rest of Gomer. Meshech was in Turkey, what we call Turkey right now, but the Muscovites, it is written in their history that they left and went into Russia proper. Tubal. Tubal is Tbilisi. It should be up here. The capital of Gog. Georgia. Georgia is right here, or Gog would be right here. All right, and this is correct about the land of Magog up here. Togarma is mostly of Armenia. And of course, a lot of Russian military equipment is indeed in Armenia, and Armenia is allied, obviously, with Russia. Then, of course, you have Persia. So as I say, then we have Dedan and Sheba. Now, this is accurate because you can look up Dedan, and Dedan is right here in Saudi Arabia, and Sheba, there is a slight difference. There is a difference between Sheba in lower portion of the Arabian Peninsula and Saba over here on this side in the African continent. A similarity in name, but there is a difference in people. And the Sabians and the Sheba did sort of traverse back and forth and trade with each other. All right. So when we look at Ezekiel 38, it says in verse 1, and the word of not the Lord, Jehovah, came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog, or Gog, or Gog, or Jouge. Now the Muslims call it Juj. And of course, modern English, Georgia. The land of Magog, the Muslims say Majuj. So that would be greater Gog, which if then you look at this map, it would be Gog would be here, greater Gog, or Magog would be here. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. It says the chief prince, but the word chief is Rosh or Russia. Rosha. Okay, you read it, look at it, you'll see it. Rosha. That means Russia. Obviously, folks. And that would be the head, the captain of this whole group. So Russia is there. The name Russia. Russia. Russia is the same name. Captain of Meshach and Tubal. Now, regardless of what the people of Georgia want today, they want independence from Russia. They want autonomy away from Russia, but they're not getting it. Russia has its thumb on Georgia and prophesy against them and saying, thus saith Jehovah Elohim, behold, I am against you, O Gog, or Georgia. Now, why is he not saying Russia? Why is he not saying Russia? Well, he is. As I pointed out in a previous video months ago, now whether or not Vladimir Putin is the one he's talking about, I have no idea. But I have pointed out that his mother lives in Georgia. I don't know if she's still alive or not. But I have gone many, many times and pointed this out. And if you, by any chance, happen to be in Russia and a member of the press and you point this out, you will get a visit from the FSB. And whether you live or not, well, I do not have any idea. That's how sensitive that subject is with Vladimir Putin. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see if I can find it. This is on the UK Daily Telegraph. How often have I gone to this particular article? It looks like once again I'm having internet trouble. Her. Notice her face. Notice her eyes. Notice her eyelid structure. Vera Putina claims Vladimir Putin is her son and that she gave him away when he was 10. By Kate Weinberg in Georgia. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing again as I've done before, but you can look it up and you can find this out for yourself and do your own studying. You can decide for yourself whether this article is true or not. And even though she's Russian by descent, you see, she lives in Georgia. And it's interesting to me that he calls him Magog. That is an insult. To call a Russian by descent a Georgian is a slap in the face. It's almost a racial slur, you see. This appears to be what's going on here in Ezekiel 38. Rosh, prince. See, you cannot escape this part and this part. They all come together, Rosh or Rosha. Rosha, prince of Meshach and Tubal. I will cause you to return. Yes, 67 war, Russia was responsible for it. Soviet Union, and put hooks in your jaws, I will bring you forth, and all your army, your horses, and what horses? Remember, folks, the word horses, the original definition was birds. In old Hebrew, late Hebrew, it was the four-legged horse. You see right here, late Hebrew. Early Hebrew was the swallow or swift, a quick, fast bird. So you figure it out. I know people have gone and said that, well, since it's talking about horses and they don't use horses anymore, then this particular chapter is obsolete. Wrong. I have proven them wrong with the correct definitions of the word. All sorts of armor, great company with bucklers and shields, and then handling, it says swords. Darts, javelins as well. In other words, any form of a sidearm or a weapon of war. Okay. And even in English, it can be used figuratively, figurative of violence and war. You see. All right. So it's not exclusive to the double-edged sword as we know today. By the sword is by violence. Persia, at that time they called it Palras. That's interesting. Kush. It could be either Ethiopia or Hindu Kush. Both have the same name. In Libya, Put, with all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer, there's Gomer. And a house of Togarmah of the north parts, and all their bands and many people. Now, so when we go and look at this particular map, this map here, you can plainly see that Europe. Now, there's something that is written in Ezekiel 39 that is most peculiar. So it does appear that France and Germany will be allied with this force, and they are under the thumb of Russia right now because of the need for gas, and also because of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The bickering that is going on with the latest developments concerning hijackings of ships, of oil tankers, is between Great Britain and Iran. Notice how France and Germany really have nothing to do with it. All right. So let's go to Ezekiel 39. Says it again. Then it says, I will smite your bow out of your left hand and cause your arrows, figuratively speaking, to fall out of your right hand. Of course, that's a figure of speech. In other words, they're going to have equipment failure, communication failure, all kinds, everything that can go wrong will go wrong when they come and invade. Why are they coming to invade? I think I know why. It says, and you shall fall upon the mountains of Israel. Well, the mountains of Israel is mainly in northern Israel. And all your bands and the people with you, and I will give you to the ravenous birds of every sort, and to the beasts of the field to be devoured, and you shall fall upon the open field. For I have spoken, and said Jehovah, and I will send, listen carefully, fire. Now, I have long wondered what this fire is going to be. Now I know. I wondered if it was nuclear weapons from Israel. It's the two witnesses. 3.5 years of no rain upon the earth, specifically upon these lands. And fire will erupt over them, because if you get 1 month of no rain in these places, fires will rip through those lands. Now listen very carefully on Magog, and among those that dwell carelessly or with security in the coastal regions. The coastal regions of what? The Great Sea. Now, let's look at this again. All of these lands here, well, except for Israel, all of these lands here, that would be Turkey. So it says on Magog, and all those that dwell carelessly on the coastlands. So this whole area right here will be on fire. Turkey will be on fire. Italy will, Greece will be on fire. Italy will be on fire. How far this goes, does it go to Spain? I don't know. I suppose it probably would. And also put these lands here. In other words, all these people are going to receive the plague of no rain for 3.5 years, and that's going to cause this great fire on Magog and all along the coastlands and in Europe. And this is how he's going to make his holy name known in the midst of his people Israel. And he will not let them pollute his holy name anymore. And the heathen shall know that he is Jehovah, the Holy One in Israel. And this understanding goes back to back with what I was talking about yesterday. Eliyahu the prophet, or Eliah the prophet, when he was telling the people of ancient Israel in the days of Ahab, how long do you halt between two opinions? Either Jehovah is or Baal. But the European Christians continue to insist to worship Jehovah and Baal, who is representative in Jesus. Because you see, and they use in both instances, they use the term the Lord, which is the name of Baal. Let me see if I can find an image of Zeus. You see this? You see this? Take a look at this. Does that look familiar? Does this look familiar to you? Image of Zeus. This is who the Christians worship and bow down to. But Zeus is Satan. There's another image of Zeus. This one. This is who the Christians worship. Satan. All right? Let's look at we'll look at Revelation 9, verse 20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils, graven images of gold and silver and brass and stone of wood, and neither can see, hear, nor walk. Watch. It is the same person. Let me see if I can find the oh, let's see here. You have this, this, this. It's all the image of Satan or demons. Now, Corinthians. No. Where is this at? Two devils. 1 Corinthians 10:20. We'll read the New Living Translation. It appears to look a little bit better. So, my dear friends, flee from the worship of idols or graven images. You are reasonable people. Decide for yourselves if what I'm saying is true. Now, folks, don't forget that the translators inserted false names in all of the translations of the Bible. You have to be reasonable people and discern, okay? This is the expectation from Paul. When we bless the cup of the Master's table or Jehovah's table, aren't we sharing in the blood of Moshiach or Messiah, not Christos? Christos is a Gentile name for their own anointed one. And when we break the bread, aren't we sharing in the body of not Christos? Once again, this word Christos is in reference to a false idol by the name of, Mithras was one of them. Sybil. That's who Christos is in reference to. You cannot take the name Christos and apply it to the Jewish Messiah if it was already applied to false gods. Which is why I refuse to apply the Christos to Israel's Messiah. And though we are many, we eat from one loaf of bread, showing that we are one body. Think about the people of Israel. Weren't they united by the eating of sacrifices at the altar? What am I trying to say? Am I saying that food offerings to idols have any significance, or that idols are real gods? No. Not at all. I'm saying that these sacrifices are offered to demons, devils, evil spirits, and not to Jehovah. And I don't want you to participate with demons. You cannot drink of the cup of Jehovah and the cup of demons as well. This is what Christians today are trying to do, and Eliyahu the prophet brought 3.5 years of no rain upon Israel because they did this. And does Christian Europe think they're going to escape when they practice duality in religion as well? There is no room for duality in religion. None. It's either Jehovah, the Elohim of Israel, or not. You cannot have it both ways. If you choose this Jesus fellow of Greek-Roman origin, not of Israeli origin, not of Jewish origin, you have rejected Jehovah, the Holy One of Israel. Because Israel's Messiah's name means Jehovah is salvation, and Jesus does not. It means something entirely different. In fact, it's insulting. You cannot participate with demons. You cannot drink of the cup of Jehovah and the cup of demons too. And this is what Christianity tries to do. Not only do they attempt to do this, but they persecuted the Jews and followers of Yehoshua for calling them out on this. You cannot eat at the master's table or at Jehovah's table and the table of demons too. What? Do we dare rouse Jehovah's jealousy? Well, ancient Israel didn't get away with it and got 3.5 years of no rain as a result. Does the Gentile world think they're going to escape 3.5 years of no rain? They're going to find out. Jehovah's name is so important that the 3.5-year tribulation of no rain upon the Gentiles rests entirely on that subject matter, the name of Jehovah. How do I know this? I'll show you. Do you think we are stronger than he? All right, I'm going to show you that the name of Jehovah rests entirely, or that the 3.5-year tribulation, the day of Jehovah's wrath, rests entirely on the name of Jehovah. Joel 2. We'll go to Strong's Concordance. In verse 32, and it shall come to pass that whosoever shall proclaim, to call upon, to proclaim, to read out loud, to say it with your mouth in a positive, reverence way, the name of what? The name, we see name of Jehovah. Look at it, folks. Read it. Jehovah. That the proper name of the Elohim of Israel. He that proclaims, heaven and earth today is a witness that I proclaim the name of Jehovah. It says, whosoever shall proclaim the name of Jehovah shall be delivered. Because in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance. In other words, they're going to slip away to Mount Zion in Jerusalem. Shall be deliverance. And that's where they will be taken. Because Jehovah has said so. And also in the remaining survivors of Israel, the last generation whom Jehovah will call again. You don't think so? All right. Okay. Let's then go back to Revelation. Is it 16 or is it 18? Let me see. Let me think about this for a minute. Hear his name, great and small. Okay. I think. Okay, there we go. Let's look at this. It's Revelation 11, verse 18. And the nations were angry, and your wrath is come. Oh, the time of the wrath. Yes, just like it says in Joel 2. Just read it. And time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that you should give reward unto your servants, the prophets, to the Kodesh. You don't know what the Kodesh is, you probably should look it up. It's not who the people in Rome say are saints. It's the Kodesh. and them that fear your name. What is that name again? Well, Joel is written that those who proclaim his name, say it out loud, to teach it. Small and great. Small, that would be me. I don't know who the great are, but I know who the small are. That would be me. And many like me. And should destroy them which destroy the eretz, the land. That's Daniel 9. Who did that? Who destroyed the land? Daniel 9, folks. It might not be so easy in this particular version, but okay. All right. Verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Titus, the Roman general, did this. The siege was supposed to last for 1 week, but it did not. But the war didn't end until the entire 7 years was over, up on the, what is that mountain called? The Citadel, where the last of the Jews were killed. I believe it was in 74, the year 74. The war started in 67, early 67, and ended in later 74, which was 7 years. Okay. He destroyed the city and the sanctuary. And they flooded the city with men. Now it says, unto the end of the war, desolations, plural, are determined. So it happened over and over and again after that, that 1 week was over. It continued. More wars, more invasions, more plundering of Jerusalem. Okay? And he shall make it desolate, even until it is consumed. Until that is determined, shall be poured out upon the desolate. Now, if you go, let's go look at a few different versions here. And the temple, he will set up the abomination that causes desolation. That is the image of Zeus, which could also be interpreted as the image of Jesus or Jesus. Same image. Until the end that is decreed is poured out upon him. Who is him? Titus and his army. When is it going to be poured out? On the day of Jehovah's wrath. Where was it? Revelation 9. It's not Revelation 9. Maybe did I lose it? I don't know where I was. But anyway, reward great and small. I accidentally, okay, here's what I'll do. Yeah, it was Revelation 11, verse 18. The nations were enraged, and the day of Jehovah's wrath has come now. The time has come to judge the dead, to reward your servants, the prophets, the Kodesh, and those who fear your name, those who proclaim your name, small and great, and to destroy those who destroyed Eretz, the land of Israel, Jerusalem, to destroy them. Who did that? The Romans. What did they have at Sunday church? A graven image of the abomination of desolation in the name of Zeus, Jesus.